Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to the Girl Meets World review. Last time, we jumped into the Shark Tank with Girl Meets Money. This time, well, I'll warn you guys now, this isn't going to be an easy one by any means. As per usual, I'll throw in the spoiler warning now in case some of you haven't seen the full episode yet and want to go in fresh. With all that said, let's dive into Girl Meets Commonism. We kick things off with a trial of sorts handled by the members of the John Quincy Adams Honor Board. It's nice to see the more minor characters sharing equal responsibility with the lead cast. Or at least it would be, if Sarah, Darby, or Yogi had any lines whatsoever. Kind of a missed chance to give them something of value to say, especially since the members of said honor board should theoretically be equal. But anyways, we get to our main conflict. Maya and Farkle were caught cheating. Maya looked at Farkle's paper and Farkle supplied the answers, so they're both at fault here. And just in case you're wondering why Farkle is acting more like Season 1 Farkle, and why everyone just looks younger in general, this episode was filmed way earlier than some of the more recent episodes, so it's a bit out of order in terms of temporal arrangement. But I've never viewed that as an issue, just something channels need to do sometimes. And, since it's a sitcom, it's generally easier to get away with. So Riley is in favor of not punishing the two for their transgressions, while Lucas wants to do the right thing. Before we talk more in depth about this, just remember that these two definitely cheated, and they aren't denying it or looking to get out of punishment. Everything that happens from here on out is Riley refusing to stand against her friends that are most definitely in the wrong about this one. When they're back in class, they start learning about communism, as in what America spent an entire world war fighting against, but Riley is actually intrigued by and eventually convinced that a society built on shared knowledge at the cost of independent thought isn't such a bad idea. Mr. Matthews, please explain why it is.
The American dream?
Yeah.
Well, this is the other thing.
Thank you. So, Riley, Maya, and Farkle, to some degree, all consider themselves communists now, and even start to dress the same. Eventually, Topanga is brought in to serve as a defendant for the accused cheaters. There, it's discovered that Riley actually played a hand in all this, making her initial reluctance to punish her pair of friends a bit more sensible, but not more right. So there's kind of a bit of an Augie moment in this episode too, where he's trying to find himself more or less, but it's not the most substantial thing in the world, especially compared to most of his moments leading up to this point. It starts off as intriguing and rather introspective actually, but then doesn't really go anywhere unless you're a big fan of cross-dressing, and that's all I plan to say about that. Getting back to the primary plotline brings us back to the classroom, where the trio of communists are sharing their own red box. And yes, just in case you have yet to study the Second World War, all the red imagery is intentional. So, Mr. Matthews gives back some tests, with the combined effort of the trio netting them a C when they get every question correct. They are obviously a bit perturbed by this, with Mr. Matthews explaining that dividing their efforts gives each of them an average score, which is, of course, incorrect. Tests are not graded off effort, they're graded by numerical score. Therefore, each of them should have received a 33.3% and all failed, which might have actually sent a louder message. Also, his message was a bit too generalized here. Yes, cheating is wrong, but working together to accomplish a task has obvious merits, because that's how most truly great things are accomplished. Again, they are obviously wrong for cheating, make no mistake, but there's a bit of learning that Mr. Matthews could take away from all of this as well. So, eventually, the trio come to realize that maybe communism isn't the best idea as they tear down the wall. If you know the historical reference, that'll make sense. We more or less end with the trio of friends back again, pledging allegiance to America. Alright, let's break this one down. If you've been watching my Girl Meets World videos, there's one thing I keep saying, that there hasn't been a truly bad episode made yet. But guys, I'm really conflicted by this one. There's a lot they get wrong here, and it just made me feel really weird watching some of the things they were doing and saying. Mr. Matthews felt uncomfortable the entire episode until the very end, and honestly, I related a lot more to him than most of the other characters here. Let's get the easy stuff out of the way first. Cheating is wrong. We all know that. And hey, some of us have done it. I'm not proud to admit it, but I've done it too. Sometimes I was caught, other times I wasn't, but it was always wrong. It was really hard to see Riley try and defend Maya and Farkle for such an obvious violation of the rules, instead of just trying to help them understand that, 1, Farkle should not be so willing to break the rules for his friends because that's a slippery slope, and 2, Maya shouldn't have to cheat to get ahead. What she should learn is how to apply herself. Now, as I mentioned, this episode does take place behind A Girl Meets Money chronologically, so we know that near the end of that episode that a bit of positive change is swirling inside Maya, which makes the fact that Disney chose this release schedule a bit off-putting. There's one of two things that could have happened in terms of this episode's use of communism as an idea. 1. The writers wanted to take the sizable leap of equating sharing answers to an entire political movement. A bit ambitious. Or two, the fact that Riley doesn't really understand communism but is immediately infatuated by it is meant to parallel how the Red Scare began in the first place. When Germany turned Adolf Hitler into one of the most powerful men in the world, they did so out of desperation. Times were tough, and Hitler was a charismatic leader that the people felt inspired by. But I don't think I need remind anyone here of why he's so universally reviled. Either way, I don't think it really works here because, one more time, Mr. Matthews.
You know the American dream?
Yeah.
Well, this is the other thing.
That'll do, Corey. That'll do. The reason Girl Meets Friendship worked way back in Season 1 is because the main cast was actually involved in an election, and their personalities at the time could be easily equated to various forms of government. But, eventually, they learned that friendship is magic, and that's where the episode ends. But, this episode basically equates that same commitment to friendship with communism. Riley, Maya, and Farkle have never been so off base in any episode prior to this. These three are some of the best individual characters Disney Channel has ever brought us, and it hurts that they feel the need to for some reason compromise that to make a point. Remember when I said that Mr. Matthews was too general in his assessment of group effort? That's what this episode should have been about. Not this quasi-political struggle about the merits of an idea so un-American that thousands upon thousands of actual Americans died fighting against it. It took a team of hundreds to send Neil Armstrong to the moon. It took an entire nation to elect its first ever African-American president. And, if we want to be more grounded, it took this entire series, at its heart, to slowly, continually build on this idea that we all have flaws, we all have strengths, but friendship, compassion, and being individuals is what matters most. To see these powerful characters kind of forget what they've been learning since day one was a bit disappointing, even though they found their way again near the end. This episode could have asked, hey, why compete against each other in education when we can just learn by working together? And then they could have grounded that message inside anything but cheating, since there's no exceptionally effective argument for cheating. We could have had actual debates about the merits of group work versus individual effort, but what we got was communism. When Girl Meets Belief came out, there was more than a bit of controversy over that episode. I still think it's one of the all-time best episodes of Girl Meets World, but there are valid arguments on either side. I really wonder what kind of potential backlash this episode could receive for its introduction of another extremely controversial topic. I don't know about this one, guys. I watched it all, and it just felt so off-putting in so many ways. The way they dealt with cheating was different, but not exactly a good different, and again, it feels like it's taking away some of the valuable things that this show has already taught. This may take a bit more digesting, but unlike Girl Meets Money, this probably won't go down as one of my favorites. If you liked it, cool. I'd love to hear what your perspective is, but for me, this was a few steps backwards. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, help me out with the likes, subs, and share it all over social media. And don't forget to follow the Disney Brain on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Links down below. This coming week, I'll finally be uploading the female version of the top 10 best Disney Channel characters, as well as the Girl Meets Bay window review next Friday, so be on the lookout for those. Until then...
Well, I stand with them. Yay!
I don't need this.